one of the first inmates that starts expressing an interest in the wisdom of Kabbalah through our Good Environment Correspondence course for inmates. His great yearning and a great desire sets off our organization to start preparing for something that soon will become a solution to many people that may have lost hope. Many letters of interested inmates start responding to a small ad from within the walls of the correctional facilities. And now over 3,500 students nationwide study our course, with many newly interested students. A light at the end of the tunnel was no longer a cliche. Our request has been finally granted for an interview with our first student. Our volunteers of the Good Environment, Mike and Avram, are excited about this opportunity and set off on a cross-country journey.
How did you discover our organization?
The way that I discovered B'nai Baruch was after in county jail during my trial. I randomly came across a book on the bookshelf that was a satirical novel, but it mentioned Kabbalah and Isaac Luria, the Ari, and it just blew me away. It exposed me to concepts that that have been concealed from me my whole life, things that I have never heard of before, and it just fascinated me. It gripped me, and I had to find out more about what is Kabbalah. And so I called my mother on the phone and was begging her to order me a book explaining Kabbalah and what is Kabbalah. And the book that she chose was Kabbalah for Beginners by Rav Leibman. And when I received this book, it completely blew my mind. The book is very, very simple, beginner introduction to Kabbalah. But it just gripped me and it just blew me away. And I read it so many times that the pages were falling out. I read it over and over and over and over, 10, 20 times. I couldn't stop reading it. And that was a spark that changed the whole course of my life, was that moment.
How has your attitude toward others, inmates, prison authorities, etc., directly around you change as a result of studying Kabbalah?
Well, I'm almost a completely different person that I once was before Kabbalah. It sent my evolution on like a light speed course. It set my spiritual evolution on just a light speed development in the so rapidly that I have developed and grown and matured into almost a completely different person, a completely developed and full human being when compared to who I was before. Before I was in the dark about so many things that I didn't know. There are so many concepts that have been concealed from me my whole life by my upbringing and things like this in society. Kabbalah it's a little bit esoteric, and it's not very common that you would just run into thing when I was in society. And so, yeah, that Kabbalah is what changed the whole direction of my life into a consciously participating in my evolution and development.
Is it make your life in the prison behind the bars? Does it make it a little bit easy?
Well, what it has done is it really has given me a hierarchy of values of what's important, and I spend all of my time being productive in learning and developing, growing, processing, and Kabbalah is the catalyst. It's the catalyst that just ignited this change, and so it's not so much making time easier, but maximizing and optimizing my time, where I see I see inmates who are just killing time. They're wasting their lives playing games or, going in circles, and it has really given me a focus and a real concentration and a real being able to harness my desires to develop myself into the person that I want to choose to become.
Do other inmates ask you about Kabbalah? What do you tell them? And do they ask to borrow your reading materials? Do you write notes to yourself from reading the materials you receive from our organization?
Yes, certain inmates more than others. Like every time I see them, they're asking me questions about Kabbalah and this and that. And other people are still beginning learning, and so I inquire into how their learning is going. And yeah, the Kabbalah is so it's so deep and so infinite that there's almost no starting point of where to talk. And so mainly I answer questions with people and encourage their learning, their studying, and taking advantage of their time to spend learning and studying and things like this.
Do they ask you to borrow your material?
Oh yeah, all the time. And so I do. I loan out materials to people, and some people's desires are more developed than others, and they are just driven and they won't stop until they're on a journey. And so I do. I share materials with as many people as I can, and in different religions also. All religions have people that are on a quest, on a spiritual quest. And so yeah.
Just one difference that I told you several times on the phone that Kabbalah is not religion. It's a science. That's how it's called, science of Kabbalah. So we, for all these years, we send you more material than anybody from this 3,000 people that we have, and video material and everything, And how do you use this material? Do you write notes for yourself, or?
No, I don't write notes, but I have a very, very good memory, and so I read it over and over again. I cycle through all of the books. I only read books on Kabbalah from B'nai Baruch, and a couple of books by the Ari, that's authentic Kabbalah books.
Now we have 2,400 inmates all over the United States. Do you feel them as your group, as you belong to each other?
Oh yeah, yes, absolutely.
Quest
to
reveal this quality.
Absolutely, that's usually the first thing I read in the Kabbalah magazine. I go and read all the inmates' comments in there, and I know exactly what they're going through, what they're thinking. Their minds are blown from the materials. From my experience, I know what they're going through. And inmates at High Desert that I introduced to it, and they wrote to B'nai Baruch and received a book. They were so grateful, so thankful that they almost couldn't believe what good fortune came to them, because B'nai Baruch's material is so high quality. In a prison context, there's almost an infinite number of missionary organizations that just have avalanches of free materials, but they're so low quality and they're not that effective, and they're not so. They don't have the energy to transform the soul and the spirit of the person. And when a person goes from reading all of the other common stuff to introduced to some of the materials from Rob Laidman and the materials that you guys put together in New York, they're really, their minds are blown.
So you think that this Wisdom of Kabbalah magazine for inmates is important tool to bring to feel inmates like one group and they belong to each other?
There's nothing else like it in available whatsoever, and it is the exact missing ingredient that the people are missing, and they don't know it until they are exposed to it. They read it, and it is just, it's what they've been seeking their entire life, but they didn't know it. And so the special magazine for inmates is, you guys did an outstanding job putting it together. It's so high quality that it's the best out there.
How's the staff and other inmates comment on your attitude or ask what you're on?
Yeah, they I think with my therapist that I work with and psychologists, I think they're really impressed at how driven I am for therapy and resolution of many issues in life, and how Kabbalah, it almost it dovetails with therapy and reformation and rehabilitation, that the two are almost the same thing. And it makes for very good conversation in our group sessions, and I've been able to round people up was through watching the DVDs. We watched the DVDs, and a lot of times they would ask to pause it. They'd be so overcome emotional from some concept that they just learned, that they would want to discuss it. And so I think that's probably the most practical way to really be able to bring the group together with the instruction of Rav Laidman or another instructor that we can all learn from, because
So we talk about your transformation, your this development. What do you think? How's the wisdom of Kabbalah create positive change in the prison environment altogether? In general.
Well, in the prison environment, there's many people that are almost lost, and then there's another half of the people that are they're questioning reality. They're at a point in their development where they're questioning all of the beliefs that they've been raised with, and so the only true reform comes through. We know that the Kabbalah is not religion, but it's spirituality. But the only real reform and correction in Department of Corrections is through the spiritual resource materials. The prison is almost powerless. They don't have anything that they can any tool to legitimately rehabilitate human beings that are deviate and their desires get out of control and makes them do all kinds of sins and crimes, and they don't know why. A lot of times they don't understand what's going on internally, and the government is not only without tools and resources to really access the people, but are almost prevented by separation of church and state from using the only real effective means to reform the souls and spirits of wayward people.
So whenever you're ready, just pour your heart out.
Okay, to all of the inmates, special inmates in the prison, and all of the prisoners outside of prison, the Kabbalah, no matter where a person is in life, the practicing of Kabbalah, of learning spirituality, and uncovering the person that you were meant to become, and that you will come to have a choice of developing into the person who you would want to be. And you can be anything you wish. You can choose to be the most successful person that there ever lived, to learn to think how they think, to have the desires that they desire, and to have the passions and pursuits that they have. Or if you don't consciously choose, make these kinds of choices and just drift along in life, there's no telling how far away from the Creator you might have to go before until you become consciously aware of how far away from life you are, of true life and living. And the process should be begun as soon as possible, so that no time is wasted. No time is wasted where you can be developing and refining yourself emotionally, spiritually, mentally, and developing special faculties, developing sensory, and the spiritual kind of senses. It's a great honor, privilege, finally meeting you guys. You guys, I feel connected with you guys in spirit. It doesn't matter how much space between us, but you guys are closer than family to me. I don't even have family that I'm in contact with, and so.
President Trump announcing prison reform,
Mm-hmm.
and what they want to do is pretty much help navigate organizations towards putting more resources, putting more avenues, and finding solutions. They're going to start with people with drug defense, and then they're going to probably expand depending on the success of the people coming out, learning skills. They want to get them out working, basically. Working, paying taxes, that's the mindset.
Right.
We're coming from a completely different aspect, where we understand that if you don't build a foundation, the rest of the building is not going to hold, and the foundation is spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
If a person is not true with himself and understands the mechanics of the internality, then he can fall onto those desires, prey to those desires again, because we don't know anything about ourselves unless we're put in a position where now we have to make a decision, whether it's create a crime. If I'm hungry and I have no food, I might steal from someone.
Right.
Being pushed towards those directions. But if a person is aware of them from a spiritual foundational perspective, understanding the root cause of it and knows how to work with it, that's what Kabbalah helps us do, understand the internality of a person. Then those tendencies or those desires that are thrown at him, you don't run after those desires on autopilot. You analyze them.
Right.
As we say, we put a screen. It's a different calculation. Is it for me or for the sake of another? So during that process of calculation, I don't have a reactive nature, impulsive, but I can begin to understand what's going on with me, with another person, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So what we want to do
as we grow our organization, because we are officially non-profit. We are going to be filing for grants, and we have everything ready to do that. And hopefully we'll be able to expand our program. And actually, one of our future goals, our desired goal, is to have sessions, group sessions, to have volunteers come in maybe once a week or twice a month or 3 times a month. To have, like you said, in the crisis intervention, he was mentioning that he was part of a group. 20 people would come in, I don't know, once, 3 times a year or something. Several times a year they would have group interventions. And if we can prove that our program is effective in building the foundational aspect of a human being, then they can be reassured that whatever they teach the person, whether job skills or societal skills, they'll be able to go out and be productive.
Right, and you know, a lot of the inmates are in prison for deviating. There's almost an unconscious kind of, their identity is unconsciously kind of developed into, you know, with the impurities in them, and they're almost animal kind of qualities that they're not aware of. The way the identity develops is, you know, unconscious almost. And Kabbalah, it helps a person to step outside of themselves almost, and to really be able to look within, and to consciously develop and to refine these aspects of themselves, these alien and foreign concepts that are completely alien to humanity and human spirit, and the qualities that make people human, that make us human. And it's so profound that there's nothing like it on earth. I'm well read in so many concepts and topics, and there's nothing on earth similar that can compare to Kabbalah.
Good Environment Correspondence course advertised in a legal prison publication, and saw many inmate requests pour in. Letters pungent with reality responded no to recidivism, and yes to cognitive emotional restructuring, behavior transformation, and positive social support. Dante, a Nevada inmate and graduate of the first Good Environment class, clearly explains in his 2018 interview that this course reveals innate laws governing humanity, opens a desire for change, and produces nurtured adults.